Well, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the federal Liberals are evidently not having a very good week. If you were paying attention, yesterday there were two very important by-elections that happened. One in Elmwood Transcona, which we will be talking about, and the other one that I mainly want to focus on today, happening in the Montreal federal riding of LaSalle-Imard-Verdun. A riding that in, I believe, the past 4 decades, there has been a couple of reshuffling of the boundaries and renaming of the riding, but the general area has been held by a Liberal for the past 4 decades, except for a brief interlude in 2011 when Michael Ignatieff was the Liberal leader and he absolutely scuffed that election and the NDP ended up winning the riding. That riding has now been won by the Bloc Québécois in this by-election. David Lametti, last election in 2021, won it with 43% of the vote. Not a massive amount of the vote, but his next closest opponent was the Bloc, who only had 21% of the vote. This is a safe Liberal riding. Montreal is a safe Liberal city. This would be like if there was a Conservative Prime Minister and he started dropping by-elections in Saskatoon or Regina. This is pathetic on Justin Trudeau's part. But he's still not going to step down. How bad was it last night? Well, the Liberal candidate there, Laura Palestini, or whatever her name was, she ended up leaving her campaign event early because I think even she knew whether she wins or loses, this is not going to be a good look. If anything, if she won by only 1% of the vote, I don't think many people would have really seen it as a big Liberal victory. This was the end results for the riding. 28% Bloc, 27.2% Liberal, and 26.1% NDP. The NDP actually probably could have picked this riding up, but because their campaign was utterly befuddled at the very end, posting Palestinian flags everywhere and talking so much about progressivism and social justice that a lot of middle-class voters, I think, walked away from them. Because at some point in the riding polling projections, they actually showed the NDP winning, and then they ended up fading down into a close third place simply because they couldn't keep the radicalism in. But here's the clip of them talking about this on the CBC, the Liberal candidate ending up leaving the event early.
We're all trying to figure out why Laura Palestini gave that speech when she gave that speech. You got any insight? What's the vibe and the reaction at the headquarters after that?
Well, David, I could tell you one thing. As much as she was energetic in her speech, she was also energetic in leaving the party. She immediately left as soon as she gave that speech. She did a few steps saying thank you to the volunteers, turned around, went out the door, and of course we followed her. Thought maybe she was just getting some fresh air. No, she got drove away.
Yeah, sorry for the video breaking up there a bit. I actually think that's just the person who clipped it. But that's basically a repeat of what happened in Toronto, St. Paul. I think that Laura Palestini learned her lesson from watching another candidate go down to defeat in what should have been a safe Liberal riding, and she wanted to get out of there in case she lost, and then the media started swarming her on what went wrong. What went wrong is that Justin Trudeau is still the prime minister and people don't like him anymore. The thing is that people don't see the party as being independent from Justin Trudeau. So if people don't like Justin Trudeau, they're not even going to consider you as a Liberal candidate. They don't like your leader, so they don't care about what you have to say because Justin Trudeau has turned the Liberals into a personality cult where whatever he says goes and anyone else's opinions can be kept to themselves. And this is why you even have, before the by-election took place, Liberal MPs basically saying, yeah, my own constituents don't like him. Alexandra Mendes, who's in a nearby riding in Brossard, in Montreal, just said, basically said, yeah, he does need to step down or our party's going to be in trouble. Justin Trudeau knew this was probably going to be a loss because in interviews before the election even took place, he started making excuses, as I talked about in another show, for why the Liberals might lose. Oh, it's just because we've been so nice to the Anglo-Canadian community in Montreal, and Francois Legault, the Premier of Quebec, doesn't like that, so he's backing the Bloc. He's kind of doing all this excuse-making, even though Justin Trudeau has never been a friend of Quebec Anglos. Yes, a lot of Anglo-Quebecers vote Liberal because the Bloc are obviously a French nationalist party, But that doesn't mean that the Liberals haven't been enabling everything Francois Legault has been doing. So that rang completely hollow. And I think a lot of people could even detect that Justin Trudeau was going to go very soft in this election, and a lot of Liberals ended up staying home. I actually have no doubt that the Liberals might be able to recapture this riding in the next cycle. I hope they don't, because I don't think they deserve to win it. But the fact that a lot of people ended up not coming out is more reflective of not the Bloc becoming more popular or the NDP becoming more popular. It's just Trudeau not being popular. And before I get to this clip of Justin Trudeau now trying to hand wave away this election result, this is how tight it was the entire night. It was pretty incredible how close this by-election was. And the Conservatives actually did pretty well, because you would think, well, they only got like 10% of the vote, 11% of the vote, to get the exact number. Yeah, they got 11.6% of the vote. This is a riding where I believe the Conservatives, I want to go check, the Conservatives in the last election had only gotten, to get onto the right page here, sorry, the Conservatives had only gotten back in 2021 7% of the vote. So they improved pretty well. And they also improved in Elmwood Transcona. It was a winnable race for the Conservatives, and they end up falling short behind the NDP. But the NDP only got 48.1% of the vote, and the Conservatives got 44%. A little bit of a drop to the NDP's vote share, but a massive increase to the Conservatives. This, again, should be a safe NDP riding, and it became an actual squeaker election. If the Conservatives maybe put a little bit more time into this riding, or maybe next election, and now that more people are used to voting Conservative, it might actually become winnable. But now, here is Justin Trudeau being asked what he thinks about the election loss yesterday in La Salle-Marde-Verdun.
Just in English, your reaction to the results last night?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate everyone who stepped up in putting their name on a ballot at a time where we know politics is a challenging moment. I also want to highlight the thousands upon thousands of volunteers who stepped out, lots for our party, but lots for other parties as well, to show that people are still very much engaged. At the same time, we need people to be more engaged. We need people to understand what's at stake in this upcoming election. Obviously, it would have been nicer to be able to win and hold Verdun, but there's more work to do, and we're going to stay focused on doing it.
What do you think went wrong?
Oh, I think there's all sorts of reflections to take on that, but the big thing is to make sure that Canadians understand that the choice they get to make in the next election about the kind of country we are really matters, and that's the work we're going to continue to do.
That is what liquefied denial looks like. And when someone asks him, what went wrong? If honestly Justin Trudeau wanted to be more likable, because he is at like the bottom of the barrel of his likability these days, admit to mistakes. Admit to a mistake, and you actually might re-engage some Canadians. But he's following the kind of falling into the trap I see, or not really trap, the kind of toxic mindset of a lot of left-wingers, that when they don't win, it's because the election wasn't democratic enough. And I know he didn't say those words specifically, but it was going along his comment on, well, people just need to be more engaged. Yeah, you're not popular and your candidates are losing because people aren't engaged enough. Or maybe your problem is people actually are engaged and they're voting in different ways because they don't like you, because they think you're doing a bad job. But just because it needs to, people just need to be more engaged. It's not democracy unless we win. So obviously the quality of the democracy in this by-election was just not there. And him thinking like, oh, it's great that people showed up and volunteered and whatnot. How about talk about issues people care about? This is what Justin Trudeau and many other failing premiers around the country fall into every single time their popularity starts hitting the floor, is they start talking about nothing all the time because they can't win on the issues anymore. So they just try and happy talk their way through a crisis happening right now in British Columbia. David Eby wants to talk about climate and positivity and reinvesting in people without actually confronting issues. He doesn't want to talk about issues. He wants to talk about vague truisms of community spirit and how much we need to reach out and pull people up and get people up the next rung of the ladder, without talking about issues around drugs and affordability or anything like that. Trudeau doesn't want to actually even utter the words affordability these days because everyone knows He's at fault for what's going on right now. He wants to talk about ancillary issues. He wants to call Pierre Poilievre a climate denier, just like David Eby wants to call John Rested a climate denier. It just makes you look out of touch when you're talking about fringe social issues rather than what's actually hurting people these days. To lose a Montreal by-election really shows you've alienated people. And this isn't like a specific by-election in a riding where, you know, there's a heavy Jewish population because the Liberals have been enabling anti-Semitism. They all turned against them. This is actually very much not a Jewish riding. There's a few ridings out there where there's like, 20, 25% Jewish residences. This riding is like almost nothing. It's like maybe 2%. They lost it just because middle-class people don't like them. There was no specific interest group who didn't like them or specific community who they've really ticked off. These are just Montrealers they've ticked off. Just across the board, Montrealers don't like them. Think about it this way, too. This riding usually was won by the Liberals close to the same margins that Prime Minister Trudeau wins his riding of Papineau. Now, I don't think that Trudeau's going to lose Papineau in the next election, but it makes you think that if this riding could get flipped to the Bloc Québécois, well, what stops if the Conservatives invest a lot of money into Papineau? If I was Pierre Poilievre, I would go door knocking in Papineau just for the fun of it, just to troll Trudeau. Even though the Conservatives only got 4.3% of the vote in Papineau back in 2021, it really shows you how different a world Montreal is. Just hit the doors, even if you're not going to get more than 10% of the vote. Push that Conservative margin up to 8%. Help the Bloc a little bit out in that riding. And you could make it that Trudeau only wins by 7% in the next election. Maybe you could even make it closer than that. Go after the bad leaders and put the focus on, keep the pressure up on Trudeau. Try and force the man to step down. I know Conservatives want to run against Trudeau in 2025. As I've been saying in my last few videos, I want to normalize when leaders suck at their jobs, they step down and let someone else do it. I want the Liberals to lose the next election, but I also want all parties to get better at actually responding to what Canadians want, rather than basically just saying enough to try and win an election, then implement whatever they wanted to implement. Okay, anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. If you want to sign up on my website to get, onto my list of, people I can reach out to give election recommendations to, I have that link in the description of this video below. It's just wyattclaypool.com. What I want to do is kind of engage people more in nomination races, smaller municipal races, elections that actually do really affect the country, but very few people actually engage in. So sign up onto that list. It just allows me to reach out to you if you're in the right postal code for a specific nomination or by-election going on. That would be great if you guys, and you can even email me, Wyatt at wyattclaypool.com, if there's an election going on in your area that you want my input on. Right now, there's a nomination that's going to be happening in the Abbotsford federal riding that I'll probably end up talking about. Lots of candidates running for it. And again, a lot of these ridings, the nomination effectively determines who the new MP is going to be. They're default Conservative riding, so let's make sure we get the most conservative and reliable candidate possible. And then, if you want to support my work, you can also donate to my Give, Send, Go. I'm being sued by a Chinese billionaire for defamation because we published an article that mentioned him, and it literally just hyperlinked to a Globe and Mail article about him. He has no reason to sue us. He's just simply doing it to try and intimidate anybody who talks at all negatively about him, even though everything we said was true. So if you can contribute anything to that, it helps reduce the pain of the $32,000 in legal bills I've had to pay over the last couple of years. So anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. Have a good one.